So, most workplace wellness programs weren't built with parents in mind. Gym memberships and more advice don't address the stress of managing work deadlines while also trying to deal with a toddler's meltdown. So, today we're going to talk to someone who creates workplace programs specifically targeting parents. And she explains what actually helps working parents thrive instead of just survive. That's coming up now. And this is the HR Hub. Keep listening to learn about this topic and anything related to HR. You can also find me on YouTube. So today my guest is again Dr. Rosina McAlpine. She's a work and family well-being expert who works with HR leaders to build family-friendly workplaces. She also runs an organization called Win-Win Parenting. She's often asked to speak on the topic and has developed workplace parenting programs that help organizations support the parents that they have in their workforce. Oh, hi, Dr. Rosina. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming on. This is very welcome. And while it's not so current anymore, it still hits close to home for me as a parent of a now 10-year-old. But let's just dive right in. Make the case for employers considering wellness programs that target parents because, well, that's only a fraction of the workforce.
It's a good point, and it's actually a large fraction of the workforce. I was looking at statistics recently, and a very large proportion nowadays of working parents, well, of parents, have to work because
Mhm.
of the fact that financial, for a start, but there's also the choice. Like today, we've got so much more choice when it comes to our career and what we
Oh,
want to,
yeah.
achieve in the world. So we no longer can say that working parents are a small part of the workforce. They're not. They're actually a significant proportion. And depending on the industry, it can be, from a third right up to 60, 70%, because in some industries, we know education, healthcare, caring roles, there are many more working mums, right, who are in those roles. So for that very reason, if we're going to talk about equity and inclusion, and we're going to talk about employee well-being, we know that just general programs are not going to cut it. We need to be able to address the specific issues. Just a very simple example would be, you know,
Yeah.
so for example, equality is stairs. Everybody has stairs, but equity is where you've got stairs and ramps so that people who need the ramps or the elevators can use them. And it's the same thing with wellbeing programs. Um, equ- Equity is everybody has access to, like you said, go to a spa, go and meditate. But that's not equality if you've got a child and you've got nowhere to leave them.
Right. Sure can't go to the gym. I guess there are some gyms that have that have sort of daycares attached, but anyways, that's another story. Uh, so
And
to be
that's something and that's something an employer could do. Like that would
Mm,
help with equity, right?
mhm,
Equality, right? Equity and equality. Everyone can access the gym, equity, and there's also childcare.
mhm. So to be clear, are we mostly when we talk about working parents, are we mostly talking about working moms?
We have moved we have moved the scale where dads are more involved. There's no doubt about that. And we can see that in the statistics. We can also see that with improvements in parental leave, where we're not just saying maternity leave now, we're saying parental leave, which means that dads and mums can both go on leave and take different times and times together to be able. And what we do know is that when we've got very good parental leave policies in place, when dads are involved very early, that tends to continue. So having dads involved in those first few months, years, having them actively participate brings about that connection, that lifelong bond, rather than them feeling disconnected and just, like, that's your role, this is my role, I'll make the money, you take care of the family, with those old, ways we used to think about home life. So by having changes in policies where we do have more inclusion, especially in a family friendly workplace where dads are not being ridiculed, because they can get
Mhm.
ridiculed, right? "What?
Yes.
You wanna stay at home with your baby? Like, what?" So
Yes.
we really want that. We really want to be supporting dads to be more involved. But having said all of that, we know that mums take the greatest share of home and childcare. So we've got a long way to go to closing that gap.
Mhm. So, what are some of the common stressors that parents are experiencing that a program could actually help address?
Because managing work, I'm sorry, I sighed because
That
there's
was a big side too. So many, maybe.
yeah, it's like, where do I start is what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
So, what we know is that first and foremost, the juggle is very difficult. So, having flexibility at work, not
Mm,
just, about what I do, but when I do it. So, not overwhelming any employee, not just working parents, but any employee with workload. So, we want to have fair workloads because then on top of that, they've got the second shift. So it doesn't stop when you finish work. You come home and you got the second shift, right? Depending on how old the child is, it could be homework, after school activities, bath, bed, all the rest of it. So that's one big issue. So managing work and family life time, juggling. So we, introduce programs called flexible routines because you can't have just a routine, but you can have flexible routines and how to get the kids involved at all different ages and stages, right from toddler, using pictures rather than words on a list, right through
mhm.
to teenagers and using apps to remind them to do things. So that's a really important part. Over and above that, what we know today is that child mental health is on the rise. We know that bullying is on the rise. We know that children are having so many struggles when it comes to social media, gaming, all that online. Now, when a parent doesn't feel like they can manage, those are huge issues. If my child's being bullied, that is so stressful. And I can put my hand up. I've experienced that myself and had to work through that with my child. It was very stressful. But because I knew what to do, downgrades the stress to we're going to try this, then we're going to try that, we're going to take that action. And so you
Mhm.
manage it. So
Mhm.
to have a good program, we need a good parental leave program and return to work, particularly vulnerable time. We need managing work and family realistic. We need self-care strategies that are not go and meditate on a mountain or spend 3 hours at the gym. We
Mhm.
need to deal with the specific challenges. I mean, I could go on, but I think you're getting a feel for the breadth, and the depth of support that can make such a difference to the life of a working parent.
What are model employers doing for parents in their workforces? And if you can think to some of your best clients, how are they putting it all together? Is it what you just talked about?
It is, but there's a little more to it. So first and foremost, they're gathering data.
Oh,
Now, when we run programs with organizations, as part of the program, we're constantly polling, constantly questioning what's going on with working parents because we need to know. And for example, I don't want to harp on it, but COVID, right? That
right.
changed everything. We needed new data. When something happens in the world, whether it's a political, a social change or um, a terrible event like an earthquake or whatever, you need to be able to be responsive to that and help everyone around the world because even though it's not happening for you in your part of the world, it's happening to you. Your children are upset, you're upset. So to
Hmm.
be responsive. So number one, gather that data, find out what's going on. Um, the leaders are well trained. They understand what are the psychosocial risks and how do we mitigate them. They're not like, we've got flexible hours and we offer, coaching and psychosocial, psychological help if there's something going wrong. So we
Yeah,
don't
the
have that.
EFAP.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. We've got reactions, but we don't have proactivity. And,
Mm,
you know, when we've got that sort of leadership that says, no, no, I get it. These are the issues and we're going to resolve them in advance because we know that the return on investment is much better if you preemptive rather than post, trying to replace an employee, trying to help when they're already stressed and off work versus hey, they just need a bit of help right now to get through this, issue so that they can keep going. The next thing is, what are the programs? And they need to be long programs, not, well, on World Family Day, we do a family program, or, for Mental Health Week, we do one program. And I always say to employers and HR leaders at this point in time, your one off programs, thank you, that's wonderful. But what are the parents doing for the rest of the year? The kids don't go away. Like, you know, we need programs every day, all the time, all the support we need. So, what we recommend is to have long programs, 6 and 12-month programs,
mm,
resource centers that people can tap into on a regular basis. Really important. So, look at what you're doing with your programs. Is it token or
mm.
is it actually an embedded program where working parents know I'm going to get support on that month and that month and that month and that month and on that topic and that topic and that topic that I can tap into when I need it? Probably the biggest thing I want to talk to is this whole concept of a family friendly workplace culture, and not to
Mm,
make like a tick box, but actually that, you know, it, we've worked with over 100,000 working parents now in over 128 organizations. So I can tell you now, we've got amazing family friendly workplaces. And what we get from the employees who are doing the programs is, I'm so grateful to my workplace that they see me as a whole person. Because I'm doing better at home, I'm doing better at work. I feel comfortable to talk to my manager about these things because they've put these programs into place. So it's that, that relief where you go, I'm not scared to say, my child's getting an award. I've got to go to a play. My child's sick and I can't come into work. I'm going to work from home today because I'm nursing a fever here, in the other
mhm,
room. Yeah.
mhm.
And imagine a workplace that becomes an employer of choice, right? You go, I want to work here. I'm loyal. There's nothing I won't do for you because you care for me as a human. You care for my family and you want me to be the best I can be at work. And then the final bit that they do is measure, and monitor. Was it a good program? Was it successful? Did it actually make a difference? Is there lower burnout rates? Am I getting less turnover? Am I dealing with the issues that are happening and reporting? And I really love it when leaders actually have accountability for their working parents and they've actually got KPIs on how well they're doing. Because guess what? If they do, they're going to actually measure and make sure that they're doing that. So that in a nutshell is what really switched on family friendly workplaces are doing.
So you talked a little bit about measure, measure, measure. What would we measure? How would we measure it if to see if we're actually making any difference at all in the lives of working parents?
We always have to start with a baseline. So that's why collecting regular information, but in a safe way, because especially before it really is a family friendly workplace, employees, and I've talked to many of them because the programs that we run, it's confidential with the questions and the comments that come through on the program. So employees can be very confident that they can talk openly about, well, actually, I don't feel like I can talk to my manager about this, or I have talked to my manager about this and I didn't get the support I needed, right? So really important to be gathering information that helps employees feel safe, working parents feel safe to talk about what's going on for them.
Mhm.
Measuring psychosocial risks, measuring workloads, measuring emotional well-being, mental health, measuring physical well-being, all of those wellness checks so that we can have that information, ways to anonymously provide information if needed, right? So you start with your baseline and then you go, all right, so what are the key factors? it looks like child mental health, which we do know is true. Recently, Deloitte wrote a report, and it said why we need to support the mental health of employees, in particular working parents. And what was the biggest risk factor for them? Their child's mental health. So if we're not giving working parents not just mental health first aid for themselves, but for them, for their children, we're not addressing one of the biggest stresses that, working parents are having. So that sort of thing. Know the data so that you can then implement the programs. Now, once you've implemented it, this is where you need. How many are turning up? Have you got opportunity for live and replays? Because let's face it, they're not all going to be able to turn up live, right? A meeting might be on, or they might be at
Yeah.
school, or drop-offs or pickups. And then so resources they can access 24/7 easily. And then you can measure use, you can measure impact. And we want to measure impact on a few different ways. Has it impacted how we feel about our workplace, family friendly? Has it impacted us in giving us the practical tools to just do the things we need to do at home so we're focused at work? How do we feel about our managers and how open they are? Do I feel a sense of community? Do I have places where I can talk to other working parents and, see what they're doing and how they're doing and how we might be able to support each other? So that's the different kinds of measures that you want. And then obviously those harder measures like what's our turnover, right? What's our use of EAP? What are the key factors that people are going for? And we know top three: personal stress, family stress, workplace stress. They're usually the top three. But let's work back. If my workload's too big, that's going to impact on my family life. I'm going to feel guilty. I'm not going to be able to be with my family. And that workplace and family stress is going to impact my mental personal health. So you can see how it's not just a nice to have, it's a key important. You really need to be addressing these issues if we want a workforce that's happy, healthy, productive.
There were so many measures in there, like so many. So I asked this in the last episode. I'm going to ask it again. I've heard that, employees who don't have kids are angry at all the leeway that working parents get, that the individual who doesn't have children also wants. Like, how do we respond to those people?
So the whole idea of workplaces is to make it healthy and happy for all. It's not about saying, okay, you're a working parent, so you get flexibility. You're not a working parent, so you don't get any flexibility. That's not how this is supposed to work. We want to have a workplace that is family friendly, that obviously, if it supports that individual to have flexible work hours, why wouldn't an individual who doesn't have family responsibilities want the same flexibility? So it's not about singling them out and going, I'm sorry, you don't have kids, you don't get that. You have kids, you do get that. So that's not what we're doing. We're not talking about the favorite child or the not favorite child, right? We want to create workplaces. However, having said that, we do need to have that equity versus equality talk again. And we want to make sure that we understand that there are so many different small pockets and large pockets in the workforce. For example, there's the pocket when you first come into the workforce. There are certain risks that happen at that time. Then you've got parental leave and return to work, big risky time, at different life stages. Then you've got, what about close to retirement? What about menopause? What about all the things that are going
Yes.
on, right?
About
Okay. So it's not about singling out working parents and going, oh, you get flexibility, we don't. No, we have a workforce, and I get it. I mean, I put my hand over my heart now and say, I don't envy people leaders. They are doing such
yeah.
an amazing job. Like really, I do. And I always talk about people leader champions, working parent champions, because imagine that, you've got this variety, this very big diversity. We employ on diversity, right? So now I've got to manage on diversity, right? So I really do feel for leaders, people leaders, and I know that they're doing the best they can, but working parents have been the forgotten cohort. And why do I know that? Because the statistics. highest rates of burnout, highest rates of mental health issues, highest rates of turnover. So something's not right. There's not equality here. If there was, they would be doing well and they're not doing well. So sorry if I'm being a bit forceful on this, but
Yeah, no.
it's
You
all
should be
about
passionate.
equality for all, not just, a particular group in the
Mhm.
DEI employee
Yes.
group.
Okay, so we're getting to the end of this. How or where could someone learn more about building programs in the workplace for parents?
So our website is winwinparenting.com, no spaces or anything. And there's blogs, there's podcasts, there's outlines, guides. And I think I will provide you with our 5-point checklist,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
which
Yeah, we
is our
talked about that in the
5-point
last episode.
guide.
Yep.
Yeah, so that will help HR leaders who are passionate about creating family-friendly workplace to know how to collect the data, how to do leadership training, targeted programs, create that family-friendly workplace culture, and then monitor for impact. So I'll send that to you and you can put that in the link. So
Mhm.
I've really loved chatting with you. Thank you for your passion for working parents and for helping HR leaders create that family-friendly workplace.
Well, thanks, Rosina. That was wonderful. I am thinking about the role that HR and leaders can play in parental well-being. HR to really encourage the culture and the programs, and leaders to really consider what the parents that are working for them need. Uh we have reached the end of this episode though. Thanks for listening out there. We'll catch you next time when I talk with another amazing guest.